Hey everyone, and welcome to the Saga, the Clone Saga, aka the Clone Zone, or whatever we want to call it. This is the podcast thingy video form channel where we talk about Spider-Man and things related to clones. And today we're talking about Grim Hunt, and pass it to Matt for our sponsor.
Today's sponsor is my right sock. It has Superman on it to protect me from Stankfoot.
That was Matt,
That
and
suck
who
as
else is
fuck.
with
You
me?
now have stank foot.
I'm Billy, and I'm also with you.
I'm Mike, and I exist this week.
So today we're talking about Grim Hunt, the epic conclusion to the Gauntlet, and sort of the whole Brand New Day era. Now, first, we're talking about some quick side stories. We have Web of Spider-Man number 7 with a Jurdovic Kraven cover. It's a kind of boring cover.
Yeah, it's fairly uninteresting.
It's just his face.
Just like Kraven the Hunter is.
I don't know about that. This
I've
is
never liked Kraven the Hunter.
This is the origin of Kraven, because for a little bit during the Web of Spider-Man series, during the Gauntlet, issues of this series had origins of the villains being featured in Amazing Spider-Man at the moment. This is written by Fred Van Lente, who is also known for a great run on Hercules, the series Comic Book History of Comics, and otherwise related as well with Hercules. He often seems to work with Greg Pak a lot. He's kind of like his co-scripter, fill-in guy on a lot of stuff, or takes over runs from him. So he's been involved with Weapon X lately.
Wait, Weapon X or Weapon H?
Maybe both, but definitely Weapon X. He can be all right. He can be pretty great. And the artist here is Phil Briones, who did some Namor, he did some White Tiger, and he recently did a few issues of Rebirth Aquaman. This story takes place decades ago, and we have Sergei Kravinoff, Kraven the Hunter, in Russia, and it's kind of like him uniquely courting his wife, but then there's a twist at the end. He's hanging out with his rich Russian friends, reminiscing on all of his hunts in the Savage Land and killing Yetis, how he hunts with his hands and old school weapons instead of guns. And there's like references to Russian history and politics, but it's never really clear with Kraven. Like, I don't understand it. He's from like an old rich family which had connections with the Tsar, but then there are moments where he's like, "Yeah, I'm down with Stalin. I'm a commie for life." But ultimately, I don't think he gives a shit. And he meets this woman, Sasha, and chases her, and it's actually kind of rapey for a second. She has some conspiracy with her father to hunt Sergei and get married to him or whatever to inherit his family's legacy and wealth. But she kills her dad, and so it's not an origin story of Kraven at all. It's about his boring wife.
Kraven at one point also says, quote, "They say my mother is insane," which begins the trend of referencing Kraven's last hunt for really no reason, that runs throughout this entire thing.
Yep.
And that kind of really annoyed me.
Now let's jump into Spider-Man Origin of the Hunter, or whatever this is called. This is a one-shot, and it's really just a reprint of the Kraven key issues Amazing Spider-Man 15 and 34. The recoloring by John Chu. I don't know if you guys skimmed through these sections because they weren't really relevant. I don't
did.
like recoloring.
I hate
Don't
it.
like the recoloring at all. It makes it look like John Cassaday art.
Yeah, it's pretty garish. Just don't recolor comics ever.
Don't recolor, especially don't recolor like Ditko.
Yeah.
But we have two actual stories here, sort of. We have a framing device by Mark Guggenheim, who we saw before, doing some of those Ben Reilly callback stories, and Mike Mayhew, who I know Mike Mayhew Well, I don't really know him. I sort of pretend to know him for professional purposes because he drew a big profile relaunch of Vampirella in the early 2000s with Mark Millar. And he's got some interesting art, though I don't think it really shines in this story at all. This framing device, it's Anna Kravinoff reading her daddy's journal and stalking Spider-Man, and that's it. It's just to set up the reprints, which I don't think it flows into at all, really.
No.
What I find interesting is that Kraven, in his journal, somehow remembers his exact thoughts while watching Spider-Man, and then writes them down exactly how he thought them.
Mm-hmm. Now, so I mean, I guess it is a framing device, and so is around the stuff. But for some reason, I expected this to be like the A story, because now we have a backup, which is way longer, and this is written and drawn by Phil Jimenez, who drawn all kinds of stuff, but also wrote and drew a Wonder Woman run, which was pretty great. And this is him doing some more stuff with Anna. She's kind of an edgelord. She has Vermin as a slave chained up on the ground.
She's supposed to be what, 12 years old?
Yeah, I think they say she's a teenager. They say her name on one of the recap pages.
Believe it said 12 years old. There's no way a 12-year-old is this calculated and smart.
And then there's a weird thing in this story, and I don't really know what it's referencing, where it's talking about Peter Parker dressing in Daredevil's costume and other stuff.
Yeah, I don't know what this is at all.
Mike, you say there's no way a 12-year-old is this calculated and smart, but are you not a fan of Damian Wayne?
Checkmate.
I mean,
Correct on
I'm
Damian.
not a fan of Damian. Obviously, I prefer Tim because he's the best Robin.
Who's even more calculated and smarter.
Mm-hmm.
Who you
Tim
can
wasn't
read
12
about,
years old when he was Robin, though.
and
How
you
old
can
was
read
he?
about
22?
you can read about the new adventures of Tim Drake tomorrow in Young Justice #1 from Brian.
Yeah,
But the thing is that we skip some stuff because during the gauntlet, in the background, they intercut this Anna Kravinoff shit, which there was no point for us to really focus on that. Also, really the only thing worth noting in this story is that Spider-Man references that he first fought the Sinister Six 10 years ago.
Man, they gotta stop doing that.
That's Amazing Spider-Man Annual 1, right?
Yeah.
So that was 10 years ago, which puts Spider-Man. He was still in high school, right?
Yes, I believe so.
So 10 years is not like that. Still puts him pretty young for this dumb Brand New Day era. Like he could be 26.
God, I hate it. I hate it.
The best part about this issue is the cool Mysterio pinup that's included at the back of the book.
I'm not sure I even got to that.
But yeah, I didn't see that.
Now let's get on to the big story. The title of this episode, Grim Hunt, which runs through Amazing Spider-Man 634 through 637. The writer here is Joe Kelly, who was one of the ongoing writers, I think just on the second half of the Brandon Day era. And the artist here is Michael Lark, who Mike is a fan of.
Yeah,
Probably
so
because they share the same name.
yeah, so these issues of Daredevil open with because Lark was drawing Daredevil with Brubaker at this time.
So we have what we actually open with is Madam Web and Maddie Franklin. They're kidnapped by the Kravinoffs, and they fucked up Kaine too. And I like how really the only like major gauntlet arc that is referenced within this arc is S.H.I.E.L.D.
Do you like that?
We know Matt's a big fan of it.
Well, it's more relevant than the others because it has the dumb, and a close enough dumb animal theme, even though really all of Spider-Man's villains are dumb animals. But also, it was directly the last story so it makes sense.
Sure,
But Kirk Connors has fully lost his personality to the Lizard. And he's
no,
kind
he
of
always was the Lizard.
yes. Of course, not the current status quo. So someone decided let's not do that. Now,
Because it was stupid.
here's where things get juicy. I don't really think Grim Hunts is actually that interesting, but there are some characters in here which I can tell you guys about. So let's get introduced to some of the Kravinoffs as we see them.
Let's do it.
Alyosha Kravinoff shows up, basically just looking like a shitty ripoff of his father, and he's also at his brother's grave. We've seen his brother extensively in the original Club Saga. His brother was the Grim Hunter, and got killed by Kaine, and he was pretty boring. Now Vladimir Kravinoff, who was the Grim Hunter, never went by Kraven. He was a Grim Hunter. Alyosha, when they brought him in after the Clone Saga in like 1997, Marvel decided, let's actually call this guy Kraven. So this is Kraven the Hunter 2.
Is this the one that slept with his father's mistress?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, so
Okay.
we did. I think we briefly saw him. But at some point, he falls for an aspiring Hollywood actress. And so Alyosha Kravinoff becomes a film director. But he's run out of the business by the Rothstein brothers. And also along the way, his girlfriend, which he got involved in Hollywood for, she gets brutally raped. And you can read that story in Spider-Man Get Kraven.
Wait a
Sounds
minute.
terrible.
The brutal rape happens in Get Kraven?
I may be adding in the brutal part. I'm not
Okay.
sure how brutal it is, but there is a rape.
I would not expect that. I'll look about Kraven the Hunter going to
I
Hollywood.
blame Spider-Man.
And then he actually reforms for a bit. And I believe he was even like very, very briefly referenced to be involved with the Initiative following Civil War.
Who
But-
wasn't involved with the Initiative?
Exactly. But then Alyosha goes crazy. His last major appearance before Grim Hunt was in Punisher War Journal. And
Oh, that's a bad, bad book.
also, I'd like to note, and this is also before this, Alyosha Kravinoff is somehow a mutant. And it is noted, of course, that mostly because someone probably accidentally made him a mutant and then forgot that he was a mutant, he did not lose his powers on M-Day, which is pretty rare.
What
mean-
are his mutant powers?
I'm not really even sure. I don't think it matters.
Did he
But
use them in? I don't think he did anything in the story.
He used a grenade launcher.
His mutant power is to have a grenade launcher.
Yeah, just to have one.
Yeah,
He has to buy the grenades, but he has a
his
grenade.
grenade launcher.
yeah, so in Marvel's marketing publishing, the idea was that only 198 mutants did not lose their powers after M-Day. And so Alyosha Kravinoff should count as one of those.
Yeah, but like,
198.
yeah, 198, but like, all the ones that are big and mainstream, like, still had their powers.
Yeah.
Like, who was the most major person that lost their powers, Vince?
The Blob.
I'd have to think about that for a while. But the Blob lost his. Chamber lost his. Those were the really fucked up ones.
Richter
Jubilee
lost his, but then he got him back.
Jubilee might be the thing.
Quicksilver.
Oh, what a lost Jubilee is.
Yeah, Quicksilver, but he's less X-Men related. Quicksilver, Jubilee.
Sure, but he's probably the biggest character though.
Jubilee trade. I would argue and say it's Richter because they actually made a point out of it in X Factor.
I'd say Quicksilver is bigger than Richter.
Yeah, but who cares about Quicksilver?
I'd even say the Blob's bigger than. Technically, the Blob's bigger than all of them.
Literally.
Not when he loses his powers, Matt.
Nah, there's still a lot of skin there.
I mean, yeah, he's still there. He tries to
He's just like fat bastard at the end of Goldmember where he lost weight. It's just hanging off him.
and
He can use that to his advantage.
No. Billy, I don't know if you know this. Blob tries to kill himself, but he has so much excess skin, he's unable to kill himself.
I hate the Blob. I hate the Blob so much.
Vote in the comments below. What's the better blob? What's the better use of the blob?
Don't do this.
A bite out of the wasp and saying that it tastes like chicken, or him trying to kill himself, but he can't because his skin's too thick.
He could become a new superhero called the Flap, and then he just uses his extra skin to save people.
I've trapped him, X-Men.
So Alyosha, he's in the graveyard. There's also a grave for Kaine in the background, which was confusing for a while until it connects in a dumb way, which we will get to.
Mm-hmm.
Now we catch up with Peter Parker, who has swine flu. This is
Remember swine flu?
All too well. I had swine flu for 2 weeks.
Wow, and you lived through it. It was the epidemic that it was.
That's
I'm pretty sick right now, so I was kind of empathizing. And then he briefly recounts his little current Nightfall saga, which is what the gauntlet is.
Mm-hmm.
And he notes at the end that he can't remember a time when he was happy or even just okay. And I can remember it was when he had a wife. But his depression is interrupted by Kaine bleeding out in the hallway. And Kaine's ominous message is that they are hunting spiders. And so spiders are...
no.
I don't know why you couldn't have just said the Kravens are hunting spiders. Like, why did it dime people like this can't just add another word or so and clarify shit?
Also, was it wrong of me to assume that this was just a hobo zombie? Because it totally looks like just a homeless zombie is just pounding on his door.
Well, we'll get to the hobo zombie in a minute at the end of this issue.
Yeah, I guess.
Spidey runs into Julia Carpenter off the bat, who's currently going by Arachne because Brian Michael Bendis. Sort of, not really.
Also, because I read all of the Brian Reed Miss Marvel run, I don't know how she's active right now because of circumstances that happened in that book. She like kind of escaped to go be with her daughter, so nothing makes sense and nothing matters.
Yeah. So here is Julia Carpenter's story. She first appeared in Secret Wars, created by the almighty Jim Shooter and also Mike Zeck, who drew Kraven's Last Hunt. And she was kind of a major member of the Avengers West Coast and its successor, Forceworks. Then she totally loses her powers and retires to raise her son, then appears again with zero explanation during the Civil War. Because that's how...
Yeah, and then Ms. Marvel hunts her down.
And so Spidey runs into her, and she's going by Arachne because the original Spider-Woman, Jessica Drew, who in her original series kind of sort of dies at the end, she's been brought back in a more prominent way by Bendis. Sort of complicated, but that also gets the complication of that also gets referenced.
Well, that's the thing. When does she exactly get brought back? Because spoiler for a comic that's a decade and a half old at this point, it's not really her. It's a Skrull.
And Alyosha during this fight conveniently announces the name of the story.
They do this twice, by the
way. Yeah. And Spidey during one of his quips is that he's having an off decade.
A decade that would continue for like another decade.
Until last year.
Almost the middle of last year.
Julia teases Spidey about how he stole her costume, and also teases that she once considered dating him or something. That's how superheroes work.
Also, who is this? Is this Anna Kravinoff?
The
lady with Allie.
Yeah.
She also the spider burning bright thing, which is another completely pointless reference to Kraven's Last Hunt that adds nothing to the story, and I hate it.
And as Mike said, Spidey jokes about how, or as Mike alluded to, Spidey jokes about how the Clone Saga predates Secret Invasion, because there are some parallels as far as the basic concept. And the biggest profile clone, quote unquote, of Secret Invasion is Spider-Woman, a spider character. But she really should have no connection whatsoever to Spider-Man. But the whole spider mythos doesn't make any sense, so who cares?
I hate the spider mythos thing. It's so stupid, and the whole fucking story revolves around it.
Yep.
So the Kravinoffs, they kill Maddie Franklin with the help of Electro and Diablo, who are really just there because their powers are convenient.
And you
Electro,
don't even get like Electro. It's the era of Electro having his stupid burned face instead of his actual cool Ditko mask.
Yeah.
So what's the point?
Cool.
It's
His
not
his
cool.
actual
Iconic,
difference.
maybe, but not cool.
I agree with Billy.
That outfit is amazing.
No.
That mask is amazing.
Ditko has
Also-
created some iconic design.
Wait, I'm sorry. That's another thing we can blame Bendis for because Bendis took away the mask in New Avengers Breakout.
Okay, but we're kind of glossing over. Like, I don't know, Vince, how you wanted to format our discussion, but Peter kind of launches Allie off of a roof with no intention to catch him, and then he gets impaled on a random pole, and Peter is not, like, he doesn't care.
Listen, he definitely has tetanus now.
I mean, it's a crazy Kravinoff. It's not a big deal.
Kravinoffs aren't humans.
But
No, they're me.
Maddie Franklin's sacrifice, which I'm sure infuriated John Byrne, that allows them to bring back Vladimir Kravinoff, the Grim Hunter, as a werewolf thing.
John
And
Byrne's always angry.
they describe him like as a close to a bear sometimes, but he just looks like a generic werewolf to me. And the big thing for Peter Parker's side of the story at the end of this issue is that Ezekiel shows up.
Yeah, I got this page and I went, I'm done with the story. I don't like Ezekiel at all. I do not like Ezekiel at all.
He is our resident homeless zombie.
There are I have some nits to pick with the JMS run, and Ezekiel is one of the larger ones. I hate him.
Yeah, but still better than anything someone else did on the book for 10 years.
Okay. Yes, except someone else then took Ezekiel and made him stupider by saying no. Remember that whole thing? Well, I guess no, because James already did it with the other. So never mind then.
Now let's get into the backups. All these issues have backups written by Jan DeMatteis, the original, maybe the definitive Kraven writer, and they're supposed to be drawn by Max Fiumara, who does draw this one. And there's not much to them. Kraven is depressed. He jokes about shooting himself with a rifle in the mouth. So he's been thinking about that a long time. And then the mobsters, at the end of the story, they sick Kaine on him. And I thought these were Kaine backups. So this first one in the first issue, Kaine's in it for like one page. I was kind of annoyed. Now, part 2, Ezekiel drops some exposition. And now the next spider on the hit list is Anya Corazon. Originally going, and in this story, by Aranya, she's created by Fiona Avery and Mark Brooks. Now, Avery was basically J. Michael Straczynski, basically his assistant, sort of. I'm not sure. She worked with him on Babylon 5, his very, very famous, acclaimed TV show, which he would never shut up about. And she assists him, in fact, on certain issues of Amazing Spider-Man. I feel like people don't talk about that, but her name is on the cover of like a quarter of his run. And Aranya is kind of based on concepts that he set forth, but I don't really remember his run enough to think whether there are specific things that they're talking about. And Aranya debuted in Amazing Fantasy Volume 2, which was a very weird series. Amazing Fantasy Volume 2 also introduced Scorpion 2, a anti-hero teenage female version of Scorpion. The series also introduced Death's Head 3.0 and Amazing Fantasy Volume 2, number 15 introduced a whole shitload of new heroes. And the concept was at least one of them is going to be a huge deal like Spider-Man eventually. And we could sit here for 5 hours and no one could name a single character in that issue. Then Aranya got her own series as part of a mini imprint called Marvel Next, which also included X-23, Gravity. Do you guys remember Gravity?
Nope.
And Machine Team. And Marvel Next was supposed to include Runaways and Young Avengers, but they just, and it was in the press release and the announcements, and they just never put the logo on those books. And the little imprint lasted for less than a year.
What's the Machine Team?
It's just like a really shitty relaunch of Machine Man.
I'm gonna say, is Machine Man on it?
I don't even know. Teen, not Team. Teen.
Yeah, Teen. Is he like the son of Machine Man?
Honestly, I can't even necessarily tell you what Machine Teen is. I'd rather not look it up.
I want to read the book now. I want to be Machine Team.
And then Anya Corazon, like, kind of sort of becomes Carol Danvers' sidekick for a moment. A lot of the Spider people show up because I guess Carol's friends with Jessica Drew, so the other ones have to be there too.
They make it like explicitly clear, like Jessica Drew is Carol's best friend in the Marvel universe. Multiple times.
Well, second best friend. Her first best friend is whatever bottle she has with her.
Yep. Alcoholic. Also, Captain Marvel #1. I think that comes out tomorrow, as we are recording.
Wait, which one? Her like 9th relaunch?
The
This year?
Kelly Thompson.
So it's not going to be good. Okay.
Maybe, probably not.
Hot take: there hasn't been a good Carol Danvers book since Brian Reed, and even that's not fantastic.
I'm not sure it's a hot take.
Some people really love that. I can't even remember who wrote it. Matt Fraction's wife.
Kelly Sudonic.
Yeah, they love that first run.
The other co-creator, Mark Brooks, on the other hand, is now a very in-demand cover artist. He does a lot of Star Wars stuff and other shit. And so the Kravinoffs, they get away with Anya and Julia, I guess, but it's not on panel. Like, they don't show them actually knocking her out or taking her. And Kaine picks up a razor and he gives himself a haircut, which was a pretty surprising move. I was not expecting that.
No, that was a real twist.
When did his face get fixed?
Yeah, I don't know about that either. I mean, he's kind of like beat up, but so is Pete at this point, so it's not clear.
Like, also, he should have like a giant scar all over his face.
He should also be like, he's always depicted as way larger than Peter as well.
Yeah.
But whatever. And also, he's suddenly like really talkative, whereas everything we've seen with Kaine, he's a dumb, quiet edge boy.
Yeah, this is almost a whole different Kaine.
Maybe for the better. We will see. We will see lots more from Kaine.
I'm kind of excited for that.
And this issue,
it's not a bad book.
This issue, the big question is guilt versus responsibility. And I think this is where it's not a Daredevil story, because Daredevil is about guilt and Spider-Man is about responsibility.
Yes.
Well, I mean it more in the sense of just like, it's just hardcore fighting violence by the end of the story.
And a big twist, Ezekiel, who we haven't really seen a ton in this story, he's actually the Chameleon.
This was maybe my favorite part of the story. This
I
and
liked it because Mysterio showed up.
Chameleon's like interaction with the family later on was the best part of the story. Just Chameleon in general is the best part of this book.
See, the thing is, I don't know why Mysterio's there. He's not necessary at all.
No, he's always necessary.
Okay, because the fake Ezekiel, obviously, Chameleon could pull off the look, but you're forgetting that this zombie hobo was also leaking spiders just constantly.
And smelled really bad.
And
Yeah.
smell.
So Mysterio had to create the illusion that zombie hobo chameleon was leaking spiders.
Yep, that's
I'm
true.
gonna be honest. The best part about Old Man Logan is Mysterio.
Was Ezekiel common knowledge to everyone? Like, how did they know to do this?
I have no idea.
That's a good point.
Like, how did Quentin Beck know about Ezekiel?
I'm guessing that they
Is it
got the
really
information
Quentin
when they were
Beck, like,
torturing
Mysterio?
Madam Web. That's the only explanation I can think of in my head, but I'm not going to write the script for the story.
The Madam Web said, "Hey guys, okay. So a few years ago, this Ezekiel guy. If you like pretend to be him,
Obsessed
but a
with spider
zombie.
totems.
What?
This Ezekiel guy, and he's obsessed with spider totems.
Right. So if you pretend to be a zombie of him, then you'll definitely get Pete's trust." And they're like, "Oh, thanks, Cassandra."
Now, at the end of this fight, Peter Parker gets fucking shot and then strapped down on a table and stabbed in the chest to resurrect Sergei Kravinoff. And
I immediately knew it was Kaine.
Spider-Man is dead. Yeah, it's pretty obvious that it's Kaine, but when they eventually reveal it, I wasn't certain when the switch happened. Because there are like these weird unclear panels of like Kaine like looking like poking out of the woods or something. But the switch, they show the switch later. Now, back up for this issue, Kaine gets in a bar fight. Actually, I think this is the one. There's an almost rapey scene here where Kaine's at the bar. He's flirting with some girl. Some guy was like, "Don't mess with that girl." He beats up all the guys, and then it's like, okay, whatever. He beat a bunch of people, and he gets his dumb moment with the girl. But like, he like grabs her, and she screams.
Kraven has had weird, almost rapey moments since basically he was created. I think it's his second or third appearance. The one that Roy Thomas wrote in the Savage Land, where he decides to take Gwen Stacy as his bride against her will.
Nice.
My favorite part about that was the fact that you had to shoehorn in Roy Thomas, your buddy.
It's Roy Thomas in the Savage Land. I hate it.
Then
two of the things that it's two strikes for a book right there.
That's exactly right.
You should read his Kazar run.
No, I should not. I will die. I've read 2 issues already. I read the 2 issues with Man-Thing in it, and I love Man-Thing, and I hated that book.
And this is before Savage. It's called Savage Kazar, whatever the fuck the book's called.
It's called Savagely Boring, starring Kazar.
No, before Bruce Jones and Brent Anderson do a perfect, amazing run on Kazar. Up until then, Kazar talks like shitty Tarzan, and I fucking hate Silver Age Kazar. It's really annoying.
The words "perfectly" and "amazing" are not the words you use to describe a Kazar book. I'm just saying.
There are at least 2 perfect Kazar runs, because then Mark Waid and Andy Kubert did a run in 1997. Pretty great.
Yeah, I've heard of that
one. One perfect Kazar run.
Yes. I mean, I would have taken 1, but like 2. Come on, Marvel, you're spoiling us.
What happens if they give you 3 in the next? What happens when they eventually give you 3?
That's not going to happen.
Here comes Kazar, written by Rick Remender.
Rick Remender
goes back to Marvel to write Kazar.
Jonathan
Hickman is not coming back.
Jonathan Hickman.
Now we get introduced to Mwanga, Kraven's assistant guy, and I don't know about the chronology on this because the really old Alyosha stories we read, or the Crimson Hunter stories, whatever, Kraven had like an assistant guy who was very close to him. But this is not the same guy. This is the first appearance of Mwanga. And I think that's kind of dumb. Like, just have the one African dude who's really close with Kraven and just have him in all these flashbacks. And this backup feature moving forward suddenly becomes obsessed with making references to the comic strip Jungle Jim, which is a strip dating back to 1934, drawn by Alex Raymond. and it was meant to compete with Tarzan, and it was what's called a topper for Flash Gordon, which itself was competing with Buck Rogers, and so like 75% of the page, and this is back when newspaper comics were like an entire newspaper page. Most of it was Flash Gordon, and then the very top was a small Jungle Jim strip. But I don't know why it's constantly referenced here. And Kaine gets his throat slit by Kraven, and maybe he's dead. Who cares? Now, part 3. I think this cover makes me cringe for some reason. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but it's this Kraven shot, and I think his face looks really stupid.
Yeah, I don't know if it's cringy, but it's definitely bad.
Yeah,
Is this a S.H.I.E.L.D. Rubik?
No, I don't think so. It's like Jurdovic or whatever. Now, here is where these last 2 issues where the credits start getting a little weird. We have Zeb Wells helping on writing on the script, and we have Marco Cicchetto helping on art. Which, granted, it's not like you picked up Scott Lobdell. I mean, granted, I like a lot of Scott Lobdell 90s X-Men. But someone go fix DC's Nightwing book right now. But Zeb Wells, one of my favorite Spider-Man related writers, and Marco Cicchetto, always a great artist. And so this issue opens with Sergei maybe killing his own son, Vladimir, but not really. And he's not really a fan of being resurrected, which is always a kind of fun idea. It's like, why the fuck did you bring me back? And
Yeah, I think it's in this issue. Maybe it's next one, but I kind of love it where Chameleon's like, this man shot himself in the face. Why do you think this was a good idea?
Yeah, Chameleon's reactions are great.
Chameleon's the best part of the story.
Because like they always set it up where he doesn't have a remotely good relationship with Kraven at all. So it's like just forced into this. But he's getting paid to be there with his unaccepting family.
He's literally, that guy is just like, these people, I don't know.
But then, like, things get really weird. Anna Kravinoff stabs her father for some reason because maybe he was about to hit her. I don't understand what's going on. And also, like, you can tell me if I'm totally pulling this out my ass, but they're totally, every once in a while, like, slightly suggesting, like, some weird incest vibes with Anna.
Yeah, kind of. Well, I wouldn't say incest vibes, but she's like kind of obsessed with her dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the term the Oedipus complex for your father, but I feel like
Electra complex. That's what it is.
Why do you know that right off the top of your head?
I don't know. Greek stuff.
The man that was our resident Greek expert left this podcast at like episode 9, and I'm probably giving him too much credit for that many episodes.
Way before that. And Kraven knows that the Spider-Man they sacrificed, who is now crucified in their home, was Kaine. And so Pete bursts out of a grave, and we get the flashback. Kaine costume swapped him and buried him alive. Because that's what you do in a Kraven story.
I hate it.
And
I was gonna say, it's
this is where the wider New York gets involved as well, because suddenly animals throughout the city are going crazy. And J. Jonah Jameson has a press conference to try and deal with it. Now, in the backup, Kaine confronts Kraven. He gets stabbed and drugged. Then Kaine kills Mwanga, and Kraven gets very sad. And he figures out that Kaine is a clone, or at least close enough to being Spider-Man. And I don't really know when this takes place because it's significantly messing with the timeline for Kraven's Last Hunt.
Oh, God.
Now, let's wrap up Grim Hunt.
Yeah, please.
637. We have, I want to note, Peter Parker wearing boxer briefs. In this issue, we have 5 credited artists, which is a great sign. But it's not like super noticeable. There are some rough panels though. there's a moment where I think it's Kaine or whoever is like, Alyosha, you're not like this at all. And it's like, yeah, because he was in that Get Kraven series. This character change doesn't make any sense. It probably doesn't match up at all with those Punisher appearances either. And this is where things unintentionally start calling back to the Clone Saga era as well, because suddenly the Cravens are obsessed with calling Spider-Man the Spider, spelled with a Y. And the concept is that he's devoid of humanity and he's like a cold-blooded hunter now, and his Peter Parker persona is detached. And it's exactly like when Peter Parker was calling himself the Spider right before the Clone Saga.
Yes, but really it's a callback to Kraven's Last Hunt, because that's what Kraven called him.
Oh yeah. And Kaine rips off Sasha's face.
No, Pete does.
Peter.
Oh yeah, it's Pete, which is kind of weird because then she has like a weird scar, which definitely looks similar to Kaine's Mark of Cain.
Well, see, the difference is Kaine kind of burns them, but Pete just uses his sticky powers to just her face right off. It's still in the shape of his hand.
But I want to talk about the panel in which he does it, because originally the first time reading it, I thought he plucked her eyeball out.
Not quite.
And I was like, oh, I mean, this is still overly brutal for a Spider-Man book, I feel.
Yeah.
Like, that's the part, well, that's why I'm making the Daredevil thing, like the Daredevil comparisons, because this feels to the part where, like, oh, this is just Daredevil being really, really pissed off.
I also skipped over he's wearing his black suit.
Yeah, and this is the first time we've seen it.
Which again, wearing the black suit during Kraven's Last Hunt, his last showdown with Kraven. And also, I feel like the savagery and everything like that, it's also calling back to Back in Black, which isn't that far back at this point.
I have a question for you guys about the black suit, because it's obviously iconic, and he had a cloth version for years. Would you have a problem if, like, they just go, okay, you can, for writers and artists to be like, you can use whatever suit, like, just change it up every few arcs. Of, like, he just has a black suit in his closet next to some red ones. Like, explain it like the red ones are in the laundry or something. Would you be fine with that? It's just something I ran through my head.
I would like it, actually. I feel like sometimes he needs to be stealthier, and a black suit would help with that, as opposed to a bright as fuck red one, or the actual stealth suit that they made, which is ugly.
Glows, by the way. That stealth suit glows.
I think that if there's a story reason, then sure. But if he just changes suits every other arc because the artist wanted to draw the black suit, no.
Also,
don't have a black suit in Friendly Neighborhood and the red suit in Amazing. Like, as long as it's consistent and it makes sense, and whatever.
But doesn't he not
prefer it, like, in my idea, because every time we bring out the black suit, it's always going to be for, like, this dark, edgy, super violent thing, which is also stupid. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but that's what I'm asking. Doesn't he not like wearing the black suit because of
Venom?
Yeah, and like shit always happens.
More MJ that doesn't like it.
Well, yeah, MJ's like traumatized by it, but I thought he also does not like it because it's like bad memories for him.
Similar.
I mean, yeah. I mean, like Mike, how many times have you worn that suit since Venom appeared?
Back in Black, that Into the Earth OGN, this.
Right. So,
and then he wears it in the Slot's final arc, right?
Yeah, but so the black suit debuted in Venom debuted in what, 88? And then the black suit
88, 89.
And then the black suit didn't come back for over 20 years.
Which is crazy, but yeah.
So, like, I don't know. I had a point and I forgot what it was.
But like, it's, I don't know, like, every time we have, like, it's always media, like, loves throwing in the black suit whenever they can. Like, remember the Web of Shadows game where you could just, like, well, it's because you had a symbiote on you, but, like, just pressing the thumbstick and you can switch in the suits whatever time you wanted. It's this weird thing of like people keep wanting to bring it back, but I'd rather see it brought back. I guess story reason, but like bring it back for when Peter needs to like things are tough. Like I don't like, so I'm gonna wear the black suit because I'm depressed and angry.
Sure. I don't think he needs to come back at all.
No, I don't think. I mean, I like that suit, but yeah, I agree. I was
So
just spitballing ideas.
back in the story, Madam Web dies, and she passes on her legacy to Julia Carpenter. Then we have a big battle, and the tides are turned. Now the spiders are actually hunting the Kravinoffs, but it's just Spider-Man.
And again, continuing the tradition of Chameleon being the best part of the story, when Pete pulls him through the window, that's so good.
Yeah, and then he's kind of never seen again, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I think Anya. It's hard. I mean, it's hard to say this as a fucking white dude, but Joe Kelly also a white dude. Anya has like one or two cringy dialogue moments where they're like, "Oh, remember she's Hispanic."
Right.
There's one that stands out to me in this issue. And Pete's about to kill Kraven, stab him, when Julia comes over, and she gives him this weird future, staring into the future, alternate timeline look, where what happens when Spider-Man kills Kraven?
And this is a suit you can play with in the PS4 game.
Yeah, apparently he develops a shitty costume.
Yeah.
And grows his hair out as well.
And stabs and kills Doc Ock with one of his own tentacles.
It does say you will become something ugly and terrible. Let me tell you, that costume is both ugly and terrible.
Yep.
He's had much worse costumes. We've already had this discussion. Of the bad costumes, this is one of the better bad costumes.
Billy, it's a double-breasted leather jacket with like a motorcycle helmet like mask with leather pants and
You're
boots.
goddamn right it is. And I've
How
never
the hell
wanted
is
to
Spider-Man
fuck Peter
moving
Parker
around in
more.
leather pants?
Julia
There's no functional reason how Spider-Man makes leather pants work.
Julia explains that Spider-Man is the moral fiber that runs through everything, specifically Peter Parker.
Well, that's just a lie.
And then everything's over, and the Cravens just disappear.
Well,
and the animals go back to normal in New York too.
Do they disappear though?
So let's get into epilogue part 1, sort of. After the story's over, Anya gets Julia's Spider-Woman costume, and she resists being called Spider-Girl, but that's what she's going to be called.
But she keeps calling Peter Dad too, so it's just like, huh?
Yeah. And the Kravinoffs somehow teleported to the Savage Land. And Kraven takes the moment to kill his wife and his son. And then sends his daughter to kill his other son, who probably just wants to go back to Hollywood.
I hate to double back, but I do have to ask, did Julia Carpenter steal Wonder Man's jacket and gloves for her new Madam Web outfit?
Oh, no.
Jacket and glasses? Because she looks like Wonder Man.
I wish you hadn't said that. I can't unsee it.
So remember how I told you that Alyosha was a mutant? Anna Kravinoff is an Inhuman.
Oh my god.
Because Sasha's bloodline have Inhuman genes, and in all new Inhumans, Anna, following her next appearances, which we will read on this show, she just kind of shows up and guides the Inhumans to like a lost city of Inhumans, which she was investigating to figure out about her heritage.
Thanks. I hate it.
Yep. Now, finishing up the DeMatteis backup, Kaine buries Kraven alive, as you do. And so Kraven totally ripped off this idea. And that's literally all that happens. They split off. And this whole backup was kind of meh, just like the Kaine and Ben Reilly flashbacks from last episode. But it adds little twists to Kraven's last hunt. which just really confused the continuity, and I don't like it.
The more we read of DeMatteis, the more I think he might not actually be a good writer. He got lucky once.
So say the H word. Call him what Call him what he is.
A hack.
And because he only has one good story, that makes him the hack fraud.
No, to be fair, I haven't read JLI yet.
No, but JLI is great. So he's not a hack, at least in my book.
You also need to read Moonshadow and Brooklyn Dreams.
No, you don't.
Now,
JLI.
The official epilogue of this story, Kaine rises from the grave with a bunch of extra eyes, and the caption calls him a tarantula.
Yeah. Question. Kaine becomes the other, and I thought that was in this story. Is that not what this is?
Well, we will see next episode, maybe. Next episode is Spider Island, where Kaine, I believe, will next appear.
Wow, Arden Spider Island.
Oh, Spider Island.
And so this
Things I hate, like
Grim Hunt was the finale of the Gauntlet era and almost Brand New Day, but there were two more arcs in Brand New Day. We have One Moment in Time with Joe Quesada, which is the sequel to One More Day.
Great.
And also Origin of the Species, which was the birth of Stanley Osborn. And then Harry and his new son go into hiding. And then Big Time starts. And so we read 634 through 637. Spider Island, we're going to be picking up with 666. They're not a ton ahead, and the book's still shipping a little extra.
Still going at least twice a month, I believe.
That's where we will pick up, and the artist on almost every issue of Spider Island, the one and only Humberto Ramos.
Humberto goddamn Ramos. I can't wait to...
We're going to need grain alcohol for the next episodes.
That's right.
We will see Mary Jane, though. Also, we didn't mention, we saw Mary Jane for one page in this story, and it was referencing stuff which I don't remember.
Notice how her face is normal. It's not going to be like that when Ramos is drawing her.
Oh, okay. I know we're trying to wrap this thing up, but I want to talk about that right quick. Harry mentions that his dad sleeps with his girlfriend.
Not
during that scene.
Just that. Impregnates
his girlfriend. What is that referring to?
Fucking, I don't know, dude.
Okay. Is that Menace? Who is Menace?
I don't really know.
Because didn't Menace get pregnant? Okay, you know what? I just realized I don't care.
So everyone, thanks for watching. You can Google that as we do after the show as well. And tune in next week for Spider Island.
Or don't.
No, you should.